I was about to cash a $7.2 million check and finally change my mom's life, until my mentor grabbed the mic at my graduation and claimed every penny for himself. My name's Eli Navarro, and when this started, I was just another broke kid. In Round Rock, Texas, 20 minutes from Austin, but a lifetime away from the big tech money everyone talks about. My mom, Rosa, worked the night shift as an RN at St. David's North. She raised me and my sister, Maria, alone after Dad bailed when I was 7. We didn't have much, but we had this tiny rented duplex, a second-hand desktop computer Mom bought on layaway, and her rule that I could stay up all night gaming if I finished my homework. I fell in love with code the way other kids loved baseball. I taught myself C++ from YouTube tutorials and dusty library books. By high school, I was building little plugins for Minecraft servers and flipping used laptops I salvaged from garage sales. We never had extra, so I learned to stretch $1 and fix anything twice. I got into UT Austin on a partial scholarship for information systems. During my first semester, I stumbled into the local startup scene by pure accident. There was this thing called Tech Tuesdays at a co-working loft on West 6th. Free pizza, warm beer, and a chance for broke kids like me to pitch half-baked app ideas to bored angel investors. That's where I met Victor Crane. He looked like every LinkedIn influencer rolled into one. Tailored blazer, gold watch, hair too perfect to touch. He called himself a serial founder and told everyone how he'd flipped 3 companies before age 35. He noticed my battered old ThinkPad, asked what I was working on, and leaned in like he was about to tell me the secret of life. Showed him the skeleton of what would become VaultDrop, my encrypted file-sharing tool. He told me it was genius, said he could shepherd it. I remember that word exactly, shepherd. When Victor offered me an old desk at his co-working space downtown, I thought I'd won the lottery. Free rent, mentorship, introductions to lawyers and friends in venture capital. He told my mom I'd be rich by 25 if I just trusted him, so I did. God help me, I did. By my senior year at UT Austin, VaultDrop wasn't just a side project anymore. We'd landed 2 paying corporate clients. Small law firms that needed secure file transfers without the bloated cost of big-name competitors. Victor strutted around bragging about our pipeline like it was a done deal. And maybe it was. We got an offer from a mid-sized cybersecurity firm in San Francisco. $7.2 million for full acquisition, plus a job offer for me to stay on as a lead developer. When Victor called to tell me about the offer, I remember he was almost giddy. Kid, this is your rocket ship. You're gonna make your mom proud. Pay off that duplex. Get her somewhere sunny. But let's handle this clean. I'll loop in the lawyers. You just focus on graduating and looking smart for the press. I should have heard the alarm bells, but I didn't. I'd pulled too many all-nighters to see Betrayal coming. He took me to this fancy steakhouse on Congress Avenue to celebrate. It was the night before graduation. I was half drunk on cheap whiskey he ordered for me, even though I kept saying I didn't want more. We toasted to freedom and legacy. Somewhere between the second and third glass, he slid a manila folder across the table. Final paperwork, he said. Standard IP housekeeping. Clean chain of title so the buyer has no surprises. Was tipsy, tired, grateful. I signed it. Next morning, graduation day. I still hear the crinkle of my mom's plastic phone case as she took 1,000 photos of me in my wrinkled gown. She fussed with my hair in the lobby of the Hogg Memorial Auditorium, told me, "You look so grown up, mijo." I just kept thinking about that wire transfer, the life that was finally about to start. When Victor texted me, "Big surprise. For you during my speech, kid. Be ready." I thought he'd say something nice about my hustle. How wrong could I be? I sat 2 rows from the front. When Victor took the stage, he winked at me like we were in on the same joke. He opened with his usual bootstrap lines, got a few laughs, thanked UT for nurturing young minds. Then he dropped the bomb. One of my proudest mentees, Eli Navarro, just closed a $7.2 million deal for VaultDrop, a product I personally nurtured from napkin sketch to acquisition. And I'm thrilled to announce VaultDrop will now expand. As a core piece of my venture group's portfolio, the words blurred. People clapped politely. My mom looked at me like she'd misheard. I felt my phone buzz. A one-line email from Andrea, my lawyer. Call me now. That's when I realized I hadn't just signed a contract. I'd signed my soul, and my mother's future, over to the one man I thought I could trust. I don't remember hearing the rest of Victor's speech, or the polite applause, or the look on my mom's face when she leaned over and whispered, "Did he just say he owns your company?" My legs worked on autopilot. I stumbled out of the row, tripping over someone's purse, ignoring the glares. I barely made it to the back exit before I fumbled my phone out of my pocket. hands shaking so bad I nearly dropped it. Andrea picked up on the first ring. I could hear traffic behind her. She must have stepped outside her office the second she saw Victor's press release. Her voice was cold, controlled, like she'd been bracing for this. "Tell me exactly what you signed, Eli, word for word." I ducked behind a stone column, hugging my diploma like it was some sick joke. I told her about the manila envelope, the steakhouse, the champagne Victor poured like he was baptizing me into adulthood. I heard Andrea exhale in that way lawyers do when they're furious but can't say it out loud. "Listen to me. That wasn't final paperwork. That was a transfer of IP. He buried it in legalese. He owns the code now, or he thinks he does." I wanted to throw up. I pressed my forehead to the cold stone, trying to breathe. "Can I get it back?" I wrote every line of that code on my own. She said, "Yes, if we move fast. You still have your backups?" Thank God for my paranoia. All those nights I'd cloned my Git repos onto an old battered external drive. I told her yes. She told me to get to my dorm, grab everything, and keep my mouth shut. She'd handle the buyer directly. I ended the call when my mom found me. She looked so small in that giant hallway, clutching her phone like a weapon. "Tell me what's happening, Eli." I couldn't. Not then. I just pulled her into a hug so tight my cap fell off. I felt her shaking, felt how tired she was. 2 decades of sacrifice so I could stand on that stage, only for someone else to snatch the future from us both. "I'm so sorry, Mom," I whispered. She held my face like she did when I was a kid with a fever. "Don't you say sorry. We fix this. You hear me? We fix it." We walked out into the Texas heat, her in her old sandals, me in a stupid black gown that suddenly felt like a costume. While Victor posed for photos with other parents inside, I swore to myself he was going to regret ever putting his hands on my code. We didn't even stop for lunch. My mom drove us straight to my dorm in her rusty Corolla, blasting the AC that never really worked. The whole way there, she kept saying, "We'll get a lawyer. We'll get the news involved if we have to. He can't just steal from you." I wanted to believe her. But Victor Crane didn't feel like the kind of man you could stop with a news article. He'd wrapped me up so tight in his fake praise, I didn't even see the cage he'd built around me. In my dorm, I tore through piles of old binders, receipts, half-eaten ramen cups, found my battered external drive taped to the back of my monitor like a secret, plugged it in. The soft whir of that drive spinning up was the first thing that made me breathe in hours. Every version of VaultDrop's code was there. Timestamps, commits, proofs. It was all mine. I called Andrea again. She picked up on the first ring. "I need you to scan everything. Every commit log, every note. We need to show chain of custody. I'm drafting an injunction to freeze the sale until we sort this out." By midnight, she'd looped in a reporter at the Austin American-Statesman, just in case. I didn't want it to go public, but Andrea said sunlight was leverage. If Victor wanted to play dirty, he'd have to do it with an audience now. The next morning, my phone lit up with threats. Victor's number, unknown numbers, random blocked calls. Same message, different tone. "Let's not make this messy, kid. Sign the confirmation. Take your cut." A week ago, $500K would have sounded life-changing. Now it felt like hush money, blood money. Then came the emails from strangers, other kids Victor had mentored. One said he'd handed over his patent and ended up working for Victor's buddy at half pay. Another said she'd signed a consulting deal that killed her own app. One line stuck with me. "He'll promise you the moon, then tell you he owns the sky." Meanwhile, the buyer, that San Francisco firm, froze the entire deal. Their legal team didn't want to touch anything that might be contested in court. My dream payday sat in limbo while lawyers slugged it out in emails and calls I couldn't even follow. The worst moment came when Victor showed up outside my mom's apartment. He rang the doorbell like a neighbor dropping off cookies. I opened the door and he stood there in a crisp polo shirt, smiling that plastic smile. "Come on, kid. Let's be smart about this. We can both walk away rich. Don't burn bridges." Behind me, my mom stepped up, arms crossed. "Leave now, or I'm calling the police." He slipped an envelope into my hand anyway. I didn't even open it. I tore it in half and let the pieces drift down our porch steps. His eyes narrowed for a split second, a crack in that calm, and then he turned and walked away, like I was an inconvenience he'd handle later. In the weeks that followed, our tiny apartment turned into a war room. Andrea worked 14-hour days, filing motions, flipping through old emails and Slack logs, anything to prove I'd built VaultDrop line by line in that dorm room. Long before Victor's money ever showed up, my mom stayed up with me every night, brewing coffee, rubbing my shoulders, telling me, "He's not taking this from you. Not after all you gave up." She printed out every article when the local press picked up the story. Young Austin founder fights back, and pinned them to the fridge like they were good luck charms. Victor tried to smear me, said I was unstable, said I'd never written a single line of real code without his strategic vision. He even posted some old photo of us at Tech Tuesdays, me in a faded hoodie, him in a suit, hand on my shoulder like he owned me even back then. But the more he talked, the more people started digging into his past. Journalists found other founders who'd settled quietly or signed NDAs under pressure. Old co-workers leaked emails that showed him bragging about training dumb kids to cash out fast. Meanwhile, the buyer's lawyers decided they didn't want the mess. They gave Victor an ultimatum: settle cleanly or lose the deal entirely. He stalled, threatened countersuits, made last-minute offers to buy me out for pennies. Then, Andrea found the nail in his coffin. A line buried in our earliest contract where Victor promised he held no ownership claim over VaultDrop's core IP. A clear breach. Ironically, he'd written it himself to reassure me back when I was still too naive to question him. It took 2 months of meetings, calls, and enough legal fees to choke a horse. But when it broke fast. Victor folded. He signed away any claim to VaultDrop in exchange for a token payout just to keep his face intact. The buyer released the full $7.2 million. Every cent I'd earned sweating over a half-broken ThinkPad in a campus library. The first thing I did was pay off my mom's mortgage. Then I flew her and Maria to Puerto Vallarta. I sat under an umbrella with my feet in the sand, watching my mom sip a margarita like she'd never worked a double shift in her life. I don't think I'll ever forget the feeling of that stage. Victor's voice echoing over the speakers, telling the world I owed him for my own dream. But I also don't think I'll ever forget the look on his face when I tore up his hush money on my porch. Some nights, I wake up thinking he's found some loophole, some paper I missed. Then I roll over, see my laptop blinking with new lines of code, and remember, he didn't make me successful. He just made me more dangerous.